At the heart of the story, a disturbing question echoes: what if everything we know about Jesus Christ is a manipulated version? Ancient documents and apocryphal manuscripts raise a disturbing question. Was the true essence of Jesus erased by the Church over the centuries? Could the Vatican, with its immense power, have hidden truths that could shake the faith of millions? Imagine the possibility that Christ's teachings, as handed down, are not the same as those taught by his original followers. History, in its current form, could be a carefully crafted construct, shaped by political and religious interests. What really happened during the early years of Christianity? What secrets are buried in the pages of texts that the Church has chosen to ignore? As we explore these theories, prepare to challenge your beliefs and open your mind to new interpretations. The hidden mysteries surrounding Jesus and the Vatican reveal an enigma that could completely transform our understanding of faith. What else is hidden? The journey begins now. Apocryphal manuscripts such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary are texts that were not included in the official Bible, but they offer fascinating insight into the teachings of Jesus. These documents, which emerged in the first centuries of Christianity, present narratives and teachings that often differ significantly from the stories found in the canonical Gospels. For example, the Gospel of Thomas is a collection of sayings of Jesus that emphasize the personal quest for knowledge and enlightenment, in contrast to the more institutional narrative presented by the canonical Gospels. Furthermore, these texts reveal a diversity of beliefs and practices that existed among early Christians. While the New Testament Gospels focus on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus in a more linear fashion, the Apocrypha often explore more esoteric and mystical themes. This raises questions about who really defined what should be considered orthodox and what was marginalized. The differences between these narratives can help us understand the complexity of the figure of Jesus and the multiplicity of interpretations that have emerged over the centuries. These writings also reflect the struggle of Christian groups to establish their identity and authority in a plural religious world. As we explore these revelations, we realize that the image of Jesus was not monolithic. There were many voices and perspectives seeking to express their message. These variations make us question the uniqueness of traditional representations of Jesus and what has been left out of the official story. Furthermore, apocryphal manuscripts can be seen as an invitation to critical reflection on one's faith. By considering these texts, readers are challenged to confront their own beliefs and consider different perspectives on spirituality. This search for understanding and truth is a recurring theme in the history of Christianity, and the Apocrypha plays a fundamental role in this dialogue. Therefore, exploring apocryphal manuscripts is not only a journey into the past, but also an opportunity to rethink the present. These texts help us to notice that the story of Jesus is rich and multifaceted, full of nuances that are often ignored in the most popular narratives. The Council of Nicaea, held in 325 AD, was a crucial moment in the formation of Christianity as we know it today. Convened by Emperor Constantine, the council aimed to resolve theological disputes that were dividing the Church. One of the most debated questions was the nature of Jesus and his relationship with God. The result was the formulation of the Nicene Creed, which established Christian orthodoxy and, at the same time, excluded several interpretations that did not align with this vision. This event had profound consequences for the historical narrative of Jesus. By defining what was considered acceptable in terms of doctrine, the Council of Nicaea contributed to the marginalization of other voices and texts that presented a different vision. This not only shaped Christian theology, but also influenced the way Jesus would be understood in generations to come. The decisions made there became a reference for most Christian denominations that would emerge later. Furthermore, the influence of the Council of Nicaea was not limited to theological issues. He also had a significant social and political impact. The unification of Christian doctrine allowed the Church to gain power and influence over Roman society, which in turn shaped the way the Christian faith spread throughout the world. Thus, the Jesus narrative was not just a question of spirituality, but also of power and control. The Council's discussions also raise questions about the authenticity of accounts about Jesus. If orthodoxy was defined by a specific group of religious leaders, we may wonder to what extent this reflects the true essence of Jesus' teachings. The history of Christianity is full of debate and disagreement, and the Council of Nicaea is a clear example of how decisions made by a few people can have a lasting effect on the faith of millions. The legacy of the Council of Nicaea is a reminder that the history of religion is often marked by struggle and conflict. The decisions made at Nicaea shape not only Christian theology, but also the narratives that continue to be told about the figure of Jesus. This event invites us to reflect on the complexity of religious history and how interpretations can change over time. The history of censorship and control of information by the Catholic Church is an intriguing aspect of the development of Christianity. Over the centuries, the Church took steps to suppress texts and doctrines that it considered heretical. This included the destruction of documents that presented alternative views on the life and teachings of Jesus. The idea was to maintain unity and orthodoxy, but this also resulted in the erasure of voices that could enrich the understanding of the figure of Jesus. A notable example of this control is the excommunication of thinkers and theologians who dared to question the official narrative. Often, those who promoted different interpretations were marginalized or even persecuted. This censorship not only silenced these voices, but also created a climate of fear that prevented open debate about faith and theology. This raises questions about freedom of expression within a religious context and the impact this has had on the formation of Christian doctrine. Furthermore, the Vatican's control of information also manifests itself in decisions about which texts would be included or excluded from the Bible. The selection of books that make up the New Testament was a careful process, and many apocryphal texts were left out. This choice had a lasting impact on the way the story of Jesus was told and understood. The narratives that prevailed became those that defined the Christian faith for centuries. This fact leads us to question who really had the final say on the representation of Jesus. The accounts we know today are, in many ways, products of a history of censorship and control. It makes us think about the wealth of interpretations that may have been lost along the way and how this affects our current understanding. The history of the Vatican's control of information teaches us that the religious narrative is often shaped by questions of power and authority. Censorship can limit the diversity of thoughts and experiences, and the challenge is to seek a broader and more inclusive understanding of the figure of Jesus. This quest invites us to explore the many voices that make up the history of Christianity and to reflect on what has been left out in the official narrative. The figure of Jesus throughout history has always been a topic of great debate and reflection. Different theological currents, such as Gnosticism, Arianism, and Catholicism, approached its essence and messages in different ways. For example, while Catholicism emphasizes the divinity of Jesus, some Gnostic strands saw him as a human teacher who brought occult knowledge. This diversity of interpretations shaped not only theology, but also the popular perception of who Jesus was. Furthermore, Jesus' interpretations were not static. Over the centuries, each era brought its own issues and concerns, which in turn influenced how it was viewed. In the Middle Ages, for example, Jesus was often portrayed as a triumphant king, which reflected the need for a strong figure in times of conflict and uncertainty. During the Protestant Reformation, the emphasis was on the personal relationship with God, which led to a more accessible and less institutionalized view of Jesus. Artistic representations also played a crucial role in shaping the public image of Jesus. Paintings, sculptures, and literature over the centuries contributed to the construction of an ideal that was often distant from historical reality. Artists, influenced by their own beliefs and social contexts, shaped the figure of Jesus in ways that resonate with contemporary concerns, which help to perpetuate certain interpretations over time. Another important aspect is the way in which different religious traditions, such as Islam and Judaism, interpreted Jesus. In Islam, he is considered a prophet, but not divine, which is in stark contrast to the Christian view. This diversity of interpretations demonstrates how the figure of Jesus transcends cultural and religious boundaries, being constantly reinterpreted to meet the needs of each community. The way Jesus is interpreted continues to evolve today. In the contemporary context, many seek a more inclusive and socially engaged approach, emphasizing their role as an advocate for the marginalized. This new interpretation can be seen as a response to the social and political issues that permeate today's society, showing that the figure of Jesus remains relevant and can still inspire change. The relationship between politics and religion has always been complex, and the figure of Jesus did not escape this dynamic. Since the beginnings of Christianity, political interests have influenced the way its image has been shaped. During the Roman Empire, for example, the Church sought to legitimize its authority by associating Jesus with values and norms that served the interests of the state. This strategy not only helped to consolidate the power of the Church, but also to transform Jesus into a figure who could be instrumentalized to justify political actions. With the emergence of Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire, the image of Jesus began to be used to reinforce hierarchy and social control. Church leaders, seeking to maintain their influence, reinterpreted aspects of Jesus' life to align with the demands of secular power. This generated a representation of Jesus that often served the interests of the Church more than the original teachings of compassion and justice. The Council of Nicaea, for example, was an important milestone where political and theological decisions became intertwined. By defining Christian orthodoxy, church leaders not only shaped doctrine, but also strengthened their position in the political landscape of the time. The figure of Jesus, as a result, was reformulated to adapt to this new reality, with an emphasis on his divinity and authority, characteristics that supported the power structure of the Church. Furthermore, the Protestant Reformation brought to light the need to question this relationship between politics and religion. Reformers, such as Martin Luther, proposed a return to Jesus' original messages, criticizing the way the Church had distorted his teachings for political ends. This search for a more authentic representation of Jesus also reflected a desire for greater religious freedom and individual autonomy, challenging established power structures. Today, the impact of politics on the representation of Jesus is still visible. In many parts of the world, religious leaders continue to use their image to legitimize political agendas, shaping public perception of their figure according to specific interests. This intersection between faith and politics reveals that the representation of Jesus remains a battlefield where beliefs, powers, and ideologies confront each other, reflecting the complexities of contemporary society. Archaeological evidence has proven fundamental to understanding the life of Jesus, especially when we consider that much information about him was transmitted over the centuries orally before being recorded. Excavations at historic sites such as Nazareth and Capernaum have revealed details about daily life during the time in which Jesus lived. These findings help paint a more realistic profile of the social and economic context of Palestine in the first century. A significant example is the discovery of ancient synagogues and houses dating back to the period when Jesus preached. These locations offer insight into the environments in which he might have taught and interacted with his followers. The architecture and layout of the spaces reveal a lot about the religious practice of the time and can indicate how Jesus and his disciples lived and met. Additionally, artifacts such as coins and household utensils found in excavations help to better understand people's living conditions. With this, we can have a more concrete idea of what the daily reality of the inhabitants of that region was like, contrasting with the narratives that often idealize the figure of Jesus. These discoveries show us that he was not only embedded in a religious context, but also in a complex social and economic world. Some historical texts, such as the writings of Flavius Josephus, a first-century Jewish historian, also align with archaeological evidence. He mentions Jesus in his works, offering an outside perspective on his life. These references help corroborate the existence of Jesus, in addition to providing details that can be compared to biblical narratives. Archaeological research continues to evolve, and new discoveries can emerge at any time. Each new piece of evidence contributes to a deeper understanding of the figure of Jesus and the environment in which he lived, challenging and often enriching the traditional narratives we know. Historical texts that mention Jesus are essential to understanding his life and impact. In addition to the canonical Gospels, some writings by Roman and Jewish authors of the time offer valuable information. For example, texts by Tacitus and Pliny the Younger provide references to the existence of Jesus and his interactions with the Romans. These documents are important because they emerge from a context in which the figure of Jesus was already being discussed outside the Christian tradition. The historian Flavio Josephus, as mentioned previously, is another author who sheds light on the figure of Jesus. In his works, he makes mention of James, the brother of Jesus, and of Jesus as a wise man who performed extraordinary feats. These references not only confirm the existence of Jesus, but also indicate that he was a recognized figure, even among those who were not followers of his message. These texts help to form a broader picture of who Jesus was and how he was viewed by different cultures. Through analyses of these documents, scholars can identify the interpretations that prevailed at the time and how these interpretations influenced the formation of Christianity. This leads us to question the extent to which evangelical narratives may have been shaped by later agendas. Furthermore, it is interesting to note that many of the texts that talk about Jesus were written decades after his death. This raises questions about the accuracy of the information and the possible distortions that may occur over time. The critical study of these documents becomes essential to separate what can be considered historical from what is more mythical. The analysis of historical texts is complemented by archaeological evidence. Together, these sources can offer a more robust narrative about the life of Jesus. By interweaving information from different sources, it is possible to form a richer and more informed understanding of who this central figure in the history of humanity was. And so we reach the end of this intriguing journey. What do you think? Is the story of Jesus that we know just the tip of the iceberg? Apocryphal manuscripts reveal a fascinating panorama, full of mysteries that could change everything we know. What else could be hiding in the shadows of the Vatican? Imagine if hidden truths about the life of Jesus were revealed. How would this impact your faith? What about those teachings that were silenced? Are they closer to us than we think? If you enjoyed exploring these deep questions, don't forget to like and share your opinions in the comments. Do you believe the Church has a role in preserving or manipulating the truth? And what's your favorite theory about these secrets? Stay tuned, because in the next video we will unravel more mysteries and theories that challenge history. Get ready to dive even deeper into this universe of revelations and questions. After all, the search for truth never ends. Until next time.